Okay. I know no one's on here right now. That's fine. So the reason I'm doing this is I got called in for work things, and sorry, just 1 second. I get called in for work things, so I can't do my normally scheduled live stream. And I thought it was important to just have something about the shooting. The last terrible shooting that happened similar to this would have been close to me, which was the mosque shooting in Pittsburgh, and I had obligations then, and I was unable to do really any videos or anything on that at the time. So I don't know how long I'll be able to do this. I don't know what the internet connection is on my drive out to work. I just take the interstate, so we'll see how that works. If you're listening and you can text, or you can chat, whether you could hear me or not, good, I would much appreciate it. So what's up, Pat? So yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know exactly how this is going to go. I just wanted to get my thoughts on exactly what was going with this shooting, because I think it's important to talk about. If it cancels out, I apologize. I don't know what the internet's going to be like on the way. So I probably saw about this last night. I was in bed because I knew I had to get up early to do a couple things, and I just happened to check a couple of blogs like Above Top Secret that I'm on, and I saw news of this come out, which kudos to Above Top Secret. You can find a lot of news there before you do on a lot of other outlets, because it's user generated, so users are talking about this. And I mean, it was hard to sleep thinking about this. Let me right off the bat just say a couple things. I've been one who has criticized the politicization of Islam, and what I mean is when that religion ends up being involved not just as a religion for people to worship and for their personal life, but when it's been affected in some of the countries where it's been used in a political sense. And I've criticized things like Rotterdam. I've criticized some of the actions of some of the quote-unquote refugees or economic migrants, however you want to say, many of which have happened to be Islamic. However, it has always been my contention that each of us is to worship however they want. I've known fantastic people that are in the Islamic faith. Some of the nicest people I've ever met. Now, yes, we could go through any holy book and say, but there's good and bad passages, but that's not what I want to talk about today. The only reason I bring this up is to show this is what happens when you get to such a bigoted identitarian politics, where you think that because someone worships different, or because someone in the name of some ideology or religion did something terrible, that you feel justified in using violence to go after them. It is absolutely disgusting. It's everything that I'm antithetical to. It's I'm all about free speech, discussion, debate, civility. It's okay to get impassioned. It's okay to point out criticisms, but it's just so horrific. Now think about, imagine you're going to church. You can't even feel safe in your church anymore if you're in New Zealand and you happen to be Muslim. The one place that you should feel the safest to be, yourself. Whether it be the Pittsburgh synagogue, Dylan Roof shooting up a church, this situation. The people that engage in this they're the scum of the earth. And it really is. I feel it's like that scene in The Dark Knight where they're discussing the Joker and they're just saying some people just want to see the world burn. That's what this is. Now look, I will get into some of the issues surrounding the shooting and things like that, but the first and most important thing to say is I stand with those people that were affected. My heart goes out to them, and I feel terrible to all the victims of the family, the community in New Zealand, all people of the Islamic faith that don't feel safe now going into their mosque. It's not a tit for tat. I don't care. I'm disgusted also by the people that are like, well, look at the bad things Islam have done. So what? What does that have to do with the individuals that were shot and killed? As long as we have this mentality that we just view everyone by the extremist in any group, therefore we justify things. things will never get better. The violence is just going to continue to escalate over and over and over. All Trump supporters are racist. All Hillary supporters want to sell out the country. All Muslims are bad or, did things like terrorist attack or ISIS or Rotterdam. All Catholics are pedophiles. All Jews are terrible people that, own the country, or whatever the freaking white supremacists that hate Jews say. It's enough. It's ridiculous. What we could do as individuals is show, even if we disagree with someone's ideology, even if we think there's things to criticize about the Catholic Church or Islam or the Jewish faith or Republicans or Democrats or even people of, a certain country, we should approach it with civility. You could be impassioned, but you approach it with civility. You don't blame individuals. We all have stereotypes. We all believe in stereotypes, right? Like, this is one of the things I remember when I first got into university, and I had a class where our professor asked, my first semester, do you believe in stereotypes? Do you use stereotypes? Yes, of course we all do. I was the only one who said yes. My feeling is, like, for example, I've never been to China. I have an idea of what China's like. That's a stereotype. The key is you don't judge individuals based on the stereotype. You have an initial impression, but you're willing to understand that each individual is unique. That is my core belief. That is why I love the country of the United States. It was the first country to really codify that the individual is the most important thing. And to see this hatred where people are targeted because they're part of some collective and therefore they must be bad if they're in that collective absolutely disgusts me. It disgusts me in a level of, we're just talking about words, insults, and things like that. But it also disgusts me in a world of, in addition to the absolute horrific murders that took place, the terrorist attack that took place here. And so we have this person. What is he trying to accomplish? There's a lot to say about his manifesto and what have, which I'll get to eventually. But what he's trying to accomplish? He doesn't like the invaders. Garbage. It's not your country. People have the right. I don't know what the laws are in other countries. I really don't. But all I could do is look at things like I would want my idealistic place to be in, like the United States is supposed to be. It doesn't matter what you worship, who you worship. How dare someone say, "Oh, you're an invader because you're someone who worships different than me"? Because in England there was a situation in Rotterdam. So what? Will people like this start shooting Catholics because of the bad things that have happened with the Catholic Church in the United States? Absolutely disgust me. And then, on top of it, some of the websites that I frequent, which, again, are user-generated content, but the comment, and 95% of people are cool, don't get me wrong, and they understand, regardless if they're on the right or the left, there's, they feel terrible about the situation. But then you have the select few that you can see, well, I'm sorry innocent people got killed, but the Muslims shouldn't be in these countries. What are you talking about? Just because there are places, particularly in other areas of the world, that there are countries ran in sort of a political Islamic faith that we don't like, where maybe LGBT is criminalized or, women are treated worse. That's okay to criticize that. But that doesn't mean that the individual that came from that country believes in that. In fact, many first-generation immigrants that are of the Islamic faith are actually fleeing that kind of extremist indoctrination of it. And I will just apologize. It'll be hard for me to read people's chat because I'm driving, obviously. And so now, what? Because of this guy's racist or bigoted ideology, I guess it looks like there was one primary shooter, but then 2 other males taken into custody and 1 female. All I know is of the only details I know is of the 1 male that actually filmed this. So that's who I'm talking mostly about. So because of his interpretation, he goes out and that had nothing to do with. He wrote things like Rotterdam on the clips or the pictures he showed of the clips of his guns. What does an Islamic person in New Zealand have to do with Rotterdam at all? I too was disgusted by Rotterdam. In fact, I spoke out very vocally about it. I was called Islamophobic and things like that. That's garbage. I'm not Islamophobic. I just saw a situation that I felt wasn't being dealt with properly. Nowhere did I ever say that, oh, this is all Muslims, or that we should go out and attack individuals. It's ridiculous. I hate this mentality. You know, remember, one of the stories I tell, remember there was a Muslim man in New York, and he tried to set a bomb off, a low-level bomb, and there was footage of it, and no one got killed, but this bomb went off, and then they were on the search for this guy. And this guy's father was a first-generation immigrant who owned a restaurant where he served, it was like a chicken restaurant. The dad actually, before this incident happened, they're both Muslims, the dad actually calls the FBI and the police and says, I think my son's an extremist. Can you imagine, you know, the strength of character it would take to call the authorities on your own son? But that guy was such a good person who was such afraid about extremism happening that he did that. And so what was his reward for that? Bigots protested. Oh, he's a Muslim too. Protest him. Get his business out of here. We should be encouraging the reformers. We should be celebrating people of the Islamic faith that are trying to flee the extremist indoctrination of it in some of these bad countries. We should judge them as individuals. You know? And now, who knows? Who knows? I don't know the demographics of those killed. I didn't watch the crazy video. I don't have the stomach for that kind of stuff. You know? But those innocent people now, they pay the price because some racist or some bigot saw instances he didn't like half a world over. And so he felt that he had to take it out. Like he owns the country. Like he's some sort of savior. What types of things was this guy upset that Islam was doing? Killing of innocent people? Oh, like he did? It just... And the reason I say it reminds me of that Batman clip is because there's no thinking involved in this. There's no rational thought as to why this would be a good idea. You know, if you followed my channel, you might have heard me say many times before, there's two ways to look at something. There's what's morally right, and there's what's strategically right. Clearly, all of us with the sane head can see why this is an absurd, immoral action, right? But let's take the morality out of it. Let's say this is a person who's like, God, geez, I'm worried about the influx of people of the Islamic faith into New Zealand. As bigoted as that might be, let's just take it at face value. He thinks that. Does he really think that his actions here will help that? It'll lead to less people or less people of Islamic faith coming? Of course not. He'll be universally condemned. People like me that have criticized things that have happened in the Islamic faith, by the way, the same with the Catholic faith, the Christian faith, I've done it all. I've definitely criticized the politicization of Islam more. I definitely, as someone who would call myself a Christian, defend Christianity more than Islam, but I treat everyone as individuals. I know that holy books can be interpreted in vast different ways, but even someone like me, I'm rallying behind the Muslims there. As I always will, regardless of your ideology. You know, I'm someone who's on the right. If left-wing people are being targeted like this, I'll rally behind them. It is the most unstrategic, ignorant thing. And I refuse to believe that he didn't know that. These people know that. When you see these crazy white nationalists, like neo-Nazi people, they know that the more they speak and that the more that they carry out heinous actions like this, the less likely that the world they envision will come to place, because they'll be attacked universally by every other group. They know that. But they just want the world to burn. They want the clash of civilizations. They want you to have to pick a side in one of these extremist positions. I'm not going to do it. You know, all I could do is try, you know, all we could do as individuals is try to encourage free speech, encourage an exchange of ideas, encourage civility, not look at people as evil because they have a different faith than us or a different political ideology. That's all, you know, that's all we could do as individuals. But I mean, there will always be nuts in any group, you know. There'll be nuts from the left wing, fanatical. So it's good. I should be all right on intersects. But anyway, we judge individuals based on that extremism. Now, if there's an ideology, we could say, for example, we know that most neo-Nazis that's a hateful ideology that will lead to violence. Okay, it's fair to criticize that. But that still doesn't mean we should judge, we just label people Nazis and go punch them. That's not what I'm saying. But to these people, the more the extremists, the more they get the attention, the more that the media focuses on the extreme from both sides. And that's not what we should be doing. We should, as individuals, be saying, I vehemently disagree with you. I disagree with this religion or disagree with this ideology. But I'll use my words to discuss it. I'll never say punish an individual, whether that means not allow them in the country or, use violence against them at the most extremist. I would never say that. Now, again, this is different than the political question of can we have increased scrutiny or temporary bans from people from certain countries. Yes, but it's not the religion. That's because of potential violence in the countries and things like that. But anyways, I'm just kind of rambling about that. I'm so angry about the situation. And again, I regret that I wasn't able, due to time constraints, to say anything really after the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting. It's the same feeling, though, the same feeling of hopelessness. And then, of course we all say this shooting's disgusting, of course. But then to see some people, although it be a very small fringe, this is what happens when you leave Islam in. Now, that's ridiculous. How dare people make that claim to try to blame the victims in this situation? They didn't do anything. They were targeted because of their religion. That was what this country, the United States, was founding on, stopping crap like that. Now, I don't know where the people are necessarily from that you see posting stuff like that online. But it's absolutely disgusting. My thoughts and prayers are with everyone affected, the community, the country of New Zealand, and people of the Islamic faith that are wondering today if they go into their mosque, are they safe? That's the one place you should feel, that you can be safe when you're practicing your religion. And there's a reason why churches are targeted, whether it be Dylan Roof or the synagogue shooter or this, because the murderers, the terrorists that are doing this, they know that they're not likely to be armed. And it's, there's a darkness, there's something about, I'm not a psychologist, but this is just my feeling. There's something, these people are so nihilistic or so evil that they want to extinguish, positivity. And so where better to do that than church or school? Those are the places you go where that's kind of the personification of innocence. Someone worshiping or children going to school. So that's where you see these mass shootings. Just now, I can say, as hopeless as it feels, at least you're seeing people come out on different ideological sides to condemn this, and so there's at least that, and hopefully we could go from there. But you also see, and it's something we're all guilty of. There's this gut reaction to want to, defend your side. Anytime there's a shooting, I hope it's not someone that, is on the same political side as me or has similar interests to me. I hope it's, the other side. And I do it too. It's terrible. It's something that I'm really working on. So you saw people immediately in the aftermath of this. Who can we blame, It's right-wing terror. Maybe. He's a racist. I guess it depends on how you define right-wing. I call myself right-wing. This person had nothing in common with me. I'm right-wing in the opposite sense, that I believe in the individual, But I'm not going to shirk away from it. I'm not going to make excuses because I think that maybe this person, if he lived in the same country as me, would have voted for a couple of the same people. Of course not. But I'm not going to jump on, just like when there's an attack that would be done on someone, a bunch of people at a country music festival got shot in Las Vegas. I didn't, I did my best to not jump in and say, oh, this is clearly an attack on Trump support. Like, we should take a moment. The most important thing is to understand, no matter who did the attack, that it's wrong, that we need to condemn it, that we shouldn't in any way try to say, well, but, the victims, they should have been in this country. Ugh. It makes me... Ugh. So, there are some things to say about his manifesto. And again, I know that there's this mentality, well, we shouldn't talk about the specifics of the incident while it's so recent. And I'm trying not to talk about anything that I haven't been able to confirm myself, which isn't a lot, seeing as how I heard about this late last night and I woke up early this morning and had stuff to do. But the first thing I guess to talk about is he basically took a GoPro and filmed himself doing this live. And I do think that there are people that I've seen saying this is a result of, like, we first saw this with Columbine, with kind of this idea of celebrity of these disgusting people where we say their name and we put their images everywhere. This idea of the kids at Columbine where, the whole idea of the trench coat and movies were made about them. Now, am I saying it's wrong to look into the situation? No, I'm not saying that. But look at the Boston bombers, Sarnev bombers. They were put like they were Jim Morrison or something on the cover of Rolling Stone. And now that we have a more interactive world, where I could be driving to work and talk to people, now we see how this could be used for evil as well. Someone basically doing what I'm doing, except they're opening fire on innocent people. And it does seem to be kind of a watershed moment. I saw people saying, is this what the future holds? For some small amount of notoriety, you could do something like this live? Now, I'm not advocating for censorship. I think that you're already starting to see people use this, he said, he was on certain platforms, so we need to get rid of those platforms. Or, he mentioned certain people's names, so they must be responsible. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. If there were people in his life that were saying things like, go out and kill Muslims and things like that, yes, then we should look at them and condemn them in the strongest possible sense. But PewDiePie, he mentioned PewDiePie, or Candace Owens, I've never heard them say anything like enact violence against people, so they shouldn't be judged for it. The same way that if an Islamic terrorist goes out and blows people up, that doesn't mean you judge every Islamic person. Now, there's a difference, again, of like being able to look at a group and see if it's cultivating extremism or not. But we're trained, at least in the United States where I'm from, people are so ready to jump on and say, someone who took a bad action belonged to the same group that you belong to, therefore that group should be condemned. And that's not the case. Anyone who was calling for violence against Muslims, and this person cites as a reference, should rightfully be criticized. But other than that, what are we going to do? If we, it seems to me also, if you look at this manifesto and you know anything about kind of internet culture and memes and things of that case, that a lot of it's him trolling. I don't understand exactly what's going on. He cites that he learned his violence from the game Spyro the Dragon, which for those of you who don't know, it's like basically a PG, it's kind of like Super Mario Brothers or Sonic the Hedgehog or something like that. It's not a game like Grand Theft Auto or something where you could say, people might get violent reaction, though I strongly disagree with that as well. So he's clearly trolling there. He says that he liked Candace Owens. For those of you who don't know Candace Owens, she's kind of a conservative speaker. He says he likes her, but she was too extreme for him. And it's clearly that there's a lot of trolling going on. And that's what leads me to believe, I'm willing to believe he was a racist. I do believe, my gut feeling, and this could change, but it seems to me that it is reasonable to say this is someone who saw Muslims as invaders and was trying to go out and kill Muslims because he's a bigot, because he's a racist. And people will say, well, Islam's not a race. Yes, I get it. And I understand that sometimes semantics matter. But the guy was also posting a bunch of stuff about white fertility rates and being worried about the ethnicity of whites being wiped out or being depopulated and things of that nature. So clearly there was racial aspects, if we take that at face value to what he's doing. But in addition to that, he's also saying this stuff that's totally trolling. So you would think if you're someone who's like got a message that you're like, I'm vehemently against Islam in this country, that you would have a serious manifesto, a serious statement, but instead he's doing all this trolling within it, which goes to show to me that even though I do believe that he was a racist and bigot, and that's the primary motivation for this attack, he's also just someone who wants to watch the world burn. He wants to create this kind of violence, and he wants to create extremist groups going up against each other, you know? At least that's my reading in of it. But because of the trolling, people need to be careful. We shouldn't be saying, you know, I don't like these calls that you see in the immediate aftermath. Oh, he was on this site, get rid of it. He also was on Twitter. Do we get rid of Twitter now because of it? No. It's not the site's fault that some nut like this was going off. I'm on sites I see on Facebook, and I'm on other sites where you see people all the time make kind of what you consider kind of like, wow, that's kind of a grotesque statement, but 99.9% of those people making those statements aren't going to pick up a gun and go shoot people. So we can't hold these platforms accountable that somehow it's their fault, that some nut, you know, posted garbage there and then went out and killed a bunch of people because of his bigoted racist attitudes. And again, we should, what group this person was connected to, what accomplices maybe he had, what motivated him, when did he become radicalized? That stuff, that part of the investigation is important. We should be looking into stuff like that. But we have to be careful that we're not, you know, like, what does PewDiePie have to do with this? And already I've seen mainstream outlets, oh, he said subscribe to PewDiePie, this must mean that some, you know, and to PewDiePie's credit, he came out immediately and condemned the attack and said he was basically ashamed that this person would use his name. But it's just, I don't know, it's absolutely disgusting, you know? And then there's the idea of gun control. I don't know what the gun laws in New Zealand are, but you see people on both sides right out of the gate. Oh, see, this is why we need to get rid of guns. And then it turns out apparently that there was someone at the second mosque that this person went to, an armed person at the mosque, an armed Muslim, who shot back and chased him away. What a brave man, by the way, right? Real big when he has an automatic weapon shooting unarmed people, but as soon as someone starts firing back, he runs like a coward. What bravery. And so now you have people, oh, see, guns are good, they saved this. Oh, see, guns are bad, they caused this. We need to stop trying to use every single issue, every tragedy that comes down to buttress our, you know, ideological beliefs, or say, see, I told you so. Now, again, I don't think you're terrible for doing that. That's not like the people saying, oh, don't leave any Muslims, it's because we had Muslims in the country. That's a unique kind of disgustingness, you know, but I'm just saying it's my preference that I think we should all take a step back and not try to politicize it and say it's our view. But again, I say that, and then I know, probably in the context of this video, I'll be saying crap that goes against that, so I get it, it's hard. Like, I don't know what's the proper reaction. You know, I could see the reactions, just like you just express sympathy and you say it's a tragedy, and then you don't say anything until, you know, a week later or something when people have time to mourn. But then there's also a thought that's like, but we should discuss this issue as it's occurring in real time, because it's important to get information. That's when we're going to get the most fact. That's when the most coverage is going to be. So it's important to have our voices and opinions out at that time. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. I know, you know, I do agree with the people that are saying, don't use a person's name, don't share the person's video. That's what they wanted. Don't celebritize disgusting terrorists like this. But it just, I don't know. It's a disgusting situation. And I don't know. It's very upsetting. I think that one of the things we could do is try to use a situation like this to kind of come together to realize it doesn't matter that we're all human beings. I mean, again, there seems to be this big feud between Islam and Judaism in the Middle East, and then in the span of what, 5 months, 6 months, we see 2 terrible shootings, both by bigots, you know, that are going after each of these religions separately. I mean, So I don't know. We shouldn't be blaming. You shouldn't blame the people that let Islam come in. You shouldn't blame Donald Trump. You shouldn't be blaming people on the left or right. It's these evil people's, the more we blame other people, the more that we take attention off of what they did, and we make excuses for what these terrible actions are. And so, I don't know. It really has me frustrated this morning. I hope that they find anyone who was an accomplice of this in any way. I hope that, I don't know. I heard the numbers at like 49 dead is the last I heard. How many were wounded? I wish all the wounded, make full recoveries. It's such a tragic incident. And we should be against any identitarianism. You are an individual. Stop thinking you need to speak for your race or your religion and you need to defend them and crap like that. It's garbage. That's the tribalism that we see. Yeah, 49 dead and 20 injured. And, he was armed to the teeth. Now, my understanding is that the laws are far more restrictive as far as obtaining guns in New Zealand than they are in the United States. So it'll be interesting to see, I'm not saying this in a pro-gun or anti-gun sense. I'm just saying if that's the case, which my initial reading of it seems to suggest, it'll be interesting to see, did he have help getting these firearms from people that knew that they were illegal? And things like that. I don't know. It's a terrible thing, though. I hope that as a country, that we could have in the United States, I hope that we could see both Democratic and Republican leadership come together and be able to condemn heinous actions like this and use this as a moment to understand that, maybe, just maybe, though I'm not optimistic, that we could start to see, oh yeah, we shouldn't prescribe people that disagree with us as evil. We shouldn't say, we have political or religious disagreements, therefore the individuals are all evil. Because this is the extension of what eventually will happen. And there will be more of this in this country, in the United States. Not just based on religion, but you'll see people, and I see it on both sides, the extremism ramping up. That's why when I ran for Congress, that was the first thing I talked about, civility. One of the things that I'm proud to say is I have tons of friends that are big-time Trump supporters. I have tons of friends that are like socialists, and I think that I try to comport myself that the people understand that even if they disagree with me on certain issues, that we could still be friends. That's the very first reason that I started this channel, was that I wanted to show we could have civil disagreements. And so when we lose sight of that civility, when we look at all of our opponents as just caricatures of evil, they disagree with me, therefore they must be immoral, then it's only a small step to saying, and what do you do to immoral people? Well, you take action against them. And sometimes that action's violence. I don't want to see more of this crap. Whether it be religious motivated or politically motivated or racially motivated. And yes, I understand. I'm not naive. We will never get rid of this. It's the way humans are built. We're always going to see extremists. There are always going to be heinous actions. There will be groups that are targeted just for who they are, for their faith, or for their political ideology. There'll be random nuts that kill people just to kill people in ways like this. Now, I don't believe the FBI story on Steve Paddock. I think that there's more to the story than they're telling us. They could have good reasons not to tell us. I don't know. But the fact that they haven't came up with any motivation seems skeptical. But nonetheless, if we take them at face value, that was just someone who just wanted to kill people. No ideological reasons whatsoever. And certainly that can be the case. We know that could happen. So it's often difficult to find meaning in this, or to find reason. What could we have done to stop this? I mean, in any particular situation, there may have been small steps that could have been said. Maybe someone knew that this person was amassing weapons and something could have been stopped. But the truth is, if we're really honest, this stuff will always happen. And so we need to be able to understand, we learn. What can we do to do our best to limit these type of things? It's my firm belief that everything we could do starts with ourselves. So we need to do a better job trying to listen to people from the other side, listen to people that we disagree with, understand that they have reasons for their positions, even if we disagree with them, even if we think they're wrong. They're human beings, and we shouldn't judge these individuals as being evil or terrible people. We could say an ideology is evil or terrible if we truly believe that, but to say that the individuals in it are evil or terrible, we should reserve that for the truly heinous that we could all condemn, like this shooter or these shooters. But when we rush to say like, I don't like the fact that in Iran, for example, that they have kind of an Islamic government and they're doing terrible things to women and LGBT. Therefore, all Muslims are accountable for that. No, that's ridiculous. Just like it would be the equivalent of saying, well, I judge all Catholics because of the abuse in the Catholic Church scandal. No, ridiculous. Now listen, does that mean, I have to be honest with myself? You go back and you look at like the Bill Maher episode with Sam Harris, where he's talking about violent Islam, and Ben Affleck's like, you're racist. No, Sam Harris isn't racist. He's talking about a problem, why we see so much Islamic terrorism. But even in his argument is, it's like, I'm going to mess up the percentages, but Sam Harris's argument was something to this effect. You have like 5% of the people that believe in Islam that actually would do like really terrible things like Al-Qaeda or ISIS type stuff. But then the next groups would scare you. You have another 15% or so that wouldn't personally do that, but they might say, yeah, well, we condone that. We think it's okay. Even in Sam Harris's numbers, he's still saying over 50% of people that believe in Islam wouldn't do this crap. And so for you, even if you have a problem and it's something that's worth talking about, I get that, you can't blame the individual. You can't blame your neighbor. You can't blame someone at the mosque in your local town, because there's a better than not chance there is than not. That's everything against what we're supposed to stand for. We're based on individual actions. When you start saying, but the group they belong to means that I'm justified taking all these horrible, violent actions, this is the end result. And we're going to see more of it. Again, I'm not taking sides. And you might say, geez, this attack just happened, and you're talking about Sam Harris criticizing violent Islam. That's because I'm trying to be, I'm not going to shirk away from the things that means would I prescribe any sort of violence at all. Should be able to talk and discuss and say things, and say when any religion, when it does something we dislike or that we disbelieve in, or any political ideology, we should be able to talk about that. But I will always condemn any sort of violence based on that, always. I guess another thing worth talking about is, which is tough, is the conspiracy theories that always come up with an issue like this. I get it. I get the people that are like, it is spitting on the graves of the recently deceased to be talking about conspiracy theories. And it's not something that I do, really. Now, I will say, as the situation in the law, as more and more started to go on with that, I started to say, wait a minute, there's some questions surrounding this. But it wasn't that I didn't believe people were shot, of course not. But I thought it's fruitful to question it. I'd say the same with any incident, including this one. But there's a fine line. Be respectful, to the people that were shot. But we shouldn't silence people, allow them to talk, fine. If you disagree with it and you think it's disgusting, tell them. But it's worthwhile to look into what was going on. I don't think the people are necessarily terrible people. I think they don't understand the implications of if this attack actually happened, which it did. But when they're saying, this could be crisis actors, it's stupid, but allow the stupid to flow, I guess. If you're someone that's been personally, you hear this often with Sandy Hook, with Alex Jones, where, at one point he was like, I don't believe this incident happened. I believe these were crisis actors. I can understand if you were a family affected by that, how you would be appalled by that. But we shouldn't censor that speech. You just say you have the right to be stupid. And there is something worthwhile in asking questions when situations happen. It would, for example, the Gulf of Tonkin that got us involved in the Vietnam War, it could have been offensive to the people that were harmed in that to question that incident, but we should have questioned it more. So my take is, that's not who I am. I'm not someone who is going to look at this like it was some, it didn't happen or anything like this. More than any other incident, this one seems like he filmed it live. You know, the deaths happened. Now, here's what I'll say. It's someone who's, I guess, pseudo-conspiratorial minded. That doesn't mean, like, it doesn't mean that then people can't use the event to their advantage. That's a conspiracy of sorts. But the idea that, there needed to be crisis, or this needed to be set up, you know, by a nefarious government organization. No, evil exists. Now, those organizations could very well take this incident and use it, as many will. Governmental, political organizations, individuals will try to spin this to somehow advance their agenda on all sides of the issue, mind you. It will happen. It doesn't need to be fake or, you know, a false flag for that to occur. Violence happens. There are evil people. There are disgusting people. You know, so that's what I'd say to this. So I guess what I'm saying is you'll see this push, you know, where it's, anyone who questions the official stories is horrible, evil person. I don't think so. I disagree with their questioning. I push back on it, but that's fine. It's their right to question, and we shouldn't seek to censor them. You know, and that is a worry I have for this. That you end up with anytime you see an incident like this, you're worried that then you'll see a pushback where violence begets violence or censorship begets censorship, etc. When we start using this to say, because of these people, then we need to punish a larger group of people. So because of this, you know, horrible, disgusting person's actions, now we need to go to the platforms he was on and start censoring them or deal with them. Or because of a person that questioned this, it was harmful to someone, now we need to stop anyone from questioning it. No, that's exactly the mentality that I'm against. As long as we continue that kind of making decisions based on groups like that, then that's what we see that will lead to the logical extension of, you know, some crazy violence occurring. So it is worth saying, I don't buy the conspiracy. This obviously happened. It's disgusting. Things like this do happen. You even see Alex Jones saying, you know, I saw him on his podcast with Joe Rogan, and I only bring up Alex Jones because he's kind of the quintessential, every time there was some violent event, he was the one saying, conspiracy, conspiracy. And then he said what it took for him was, all of a sudden he started seeing people saying, Alex Jones is a CIA agent. Alex Jones is really out to get us all. And then all of a sudden people started issuing threats to him. And he was like, oh, geez, wait a minute. Maybe everything isn't a conspiracy. Maybe sometimes things are as they seem. And that's the truth. And if even Alex Jones could realize that, you know, I think that other people that are involved in these conspiracies, now I get it. You've been lied to so many times. And people do use events like, you know, take 9/11. It was used for, you know, by people for things like the Patriot Act that I'm totally against. So it's easy to see when these incidents happen. Well, wait, question, what is the reaction to it? But that doesn't mean that it was necessarily a false flag or something like that. We could still, as I was doing even before I started talking about conspiracies, I was saying we shouldn't overreact. We shouldn't do things that are punishing other people or demanding censorship or taking platforms out or blaming people that this crazy person listed in his manifesto. We shouldn't blame those type of people. We all should, you know, fight back against that type of thing. Question who's using this to their benefit. Is that the right thing to do? But that doesn't mean that it was a false flag or that it didn't occur, or there were crisis actors or anything like that. You know, I hope, you know, one of the things I hope happens, and I think you will see, is other faiths come together with these, you know, Islamic people in New Zealand and start to kind of work together with them to kind of show that, you know, it's someone who isn't a biblical scholar. It always seemed crazy to me that the big three religions, you know, monotheistic religions, they all have the same Old Testament, you know. It's just, and yet there's so much violence and like hatred and stuff. And I get it. It's all in how you interpret it, and there are other things. As someone who's more Christian, I get that I have differences with those other two, but I never had hatred towards them. You know, and I've already seen, and I guess I'll show my bias here, but I've already seen people somehow trying to link this to the NRA or to Trump, or that prayers don't, that's something you always hear, prayers don't work. How do you know? So what's your solution? You know? There's no easy solution. The idea of prayer not working, it's not that prayer's just divine intervention. Prayer's self-reflection, you know? What can I do personally? If we all did that, if the entire world did that, what can I do just a little bit today to make things, extremism, less likely? Then maybe we would start to get something. That's what prayer represents to me. Understanding that you as an individual need to seek help, and you need to do what you can. Is it going to solve everything? No, of course not. But to mock that idea, to mock the idea of self-reflection, doesn't seem beneficial either. Oh, jeez, what's going on here? I wish I had a dash cam. I just... blatantly a cop right behind me, and this guy in front of me takes the U-turn, and cop flashes lights immediately. So, bad day for that guy, I guess. But... and I guess another thing I'll say about the whole situation, and you have to remind yourself, and it's really hard in a day like today, but the world's not all dark. There's a lot of goodness out there. There's a lot of great things, you know, and it's easy to get depressed, and it's easy to lose hope on a day like today. But, you know, look for the good in things too. And there's no good in this situation other than maybe people coming together to condemn this. But don't give in to, you know, everything's just horrible and dark and, you know, that's not the case. We need, you know, I don't know. It's easy to say that, but I don't know. It's a really terrible thing, so... and it's shocking. I think one of the things that's shocking, just a couple people, not that I personally know, but that are on blogs that I'm on, that are from New Zealand, are like, look, this is so out of character for New Zealand. You don't hear about this type of extremism on any side there. They're kind of known to be kind of a country where this type of stuff doesn't happen. And it happened. It could happen anywhere, you know? So, I don't know. I really, at this point, I don't think I have much more to say on this. I hope that they, you know, I don't know. I guess here's something I'll say. I heard, and this, I cannot confirm this, but there are restrictions on how much you could punish someone. Like, there's the idea of maximum sentencing in New Zealand is maybe this guy will only get 27 years? I don't know the particulars of this guy, but he didn't seem that old. So if that's true, conceivably he could be out, you know, as someone, a middle-aged person. That's insanity. This person doesn't deserve, he's lost his chance, and anyone that knowingly helped him have lost their chance to be members of society, period. Whether that means the death sentence or that means a life behind bars, I don't, you know, whatever is decided by each individual country. I know what my preference would be. But if that's true, it's just unbelievable. 49 dead. There could be more if there's still 20 injured. And with situations like this, oftentimes it shows up that, you know, more people, the death toll ends up rising. How many people are affected by that? How many families? And then just people in the community. All over this one racist bigot. Because he thought he needed to protect his... well, guess what? I guess that my guess is, I don't know. I'm just going out on a limb. Seeing as how he talked about white fertility rates. I guess I'm white. You don't speak for me. None of you do. The Richard Spencers of the world. And again, I'm not saying Richard Spencer is like this guy. I have not heard Richard Spencer advocate for violence, but he's a white identitarian. You don't speak for me. I hate identity politics wherever they rear their head, regardless if it's people that are white or black or this religion or that religion or this, you know, it doesn't matter. If they're for people that tend to agree with me or look like me or come from the same ethnicity as me or come from the same religion as me, you don't speak for me. I'm an individual. You're not some hero. You're not protecting, you know, If you're out there, if you're the Richard Spencers, and again, I just want to stress, I'm not saying Richard Spencer advocated violence or anything like that, but he's someone who wants like a white ethno-state. I don't want to be part of your white ethno-state. My ethnicity is the least interesting thing about me. It's the same as my astrological sign. I don't care. And to have people out there committing violence in the name of, defending this ethnicity. What a crock. And again, if that is your goal, if you're someone that's like, yeah, but I don't like Islam, then here's some things you should be. You know what the number one ability to change, like the things about Islam you don't like is? Supporting people that practice Islam that are trying to be moderate. That's the best thing you could do. And so when you label everyone a broad brush, all you do is increase the very extremism in Islam that you claim to be against. And this is obviously the epitome of that. There are people out there. Here's someone for you to look into if you've never heard of him. His name's Maajid Nawaz. I believe he's out of the UK at this point. He has a radio program in the UK, one of the stations in the UK. And he's a reformer, a Muslim reformer. He gets attacked by people from all sides. On one hand, people that are in extremist Islam come at him because it's like, oh, you're against the religion, you're terrible, blah, blah, blah. So he gets threats and terrible things said to him by that group. But then the people on the bigots on the other side that are totally against Islam are after him because he's Islamic. Those are the type of people. Those are many of the Muslims I've met in my life. That's who they are. They're great people. Again, back to this situation in New York. How many of us, if you're really honest with yourself, if you don't have kids, especially if you have kids, this makes sense. But even if you don't have kids, a loved one, your parents or a brother or sisters, how many of you would have the ability to say, oh my goodness, I think they're going to do something extreme. I'm going to call the authorities to basically prevent one of my loved ones from doing something that would be terrible. That takes a really, really strong person to do that. And so with this guy in New York a couple years ago that tried to blow up this bomb, and then it turned out his dad had contacted the authorities and said, listen, I think my son's going to do this. They both happen to be Muslim. And so what happened? What's that dad get for his trouble? A bunch of bigots are like, yeah, Islam sucks. Drum this guy out of business. Attack his place of business. For what? Doing everything right? He should have been celebrated. And when we don't, when we just judge people as a group, well, here's the logical extension then. Instead of saying, how do we know? How does this guy that went in there shooting? Rotterdam, he says? That was a child sex scandal in England. What does New Zealand, what do people living in New Zealand have anything to do with that? Now, based on that guy's actions, right? So, I don't know. He's someone who's critical of Islam. Does that mean then someone on the other side's justified in saying, well, here was a guy critical of Islam in New Zealand who shot a bunch of people. So now I feel justified using violence as someone who's critical of Islam in Canada. What does that have anything to do? What do those two individuals have in common? Just that they were critical of something? Okay, but that doesn't mean that the person in Canada that's critical is engaged in any sort of violence or unethical behavior. They could just be asking questions. They could just be using free speech to have debate and constructive criticism. When you judge people based just on their group, this is the kind of stuff that you end up justifying. And this tragedy is worse than anything I'm about to talk about here. And again, I'm probably going against my rule of don't try to, shift it to what benefits you. But remember the entire discussion of, is it okay to punch Nazis? This is why I'm so vehemently against it. Because once you justify violence for a group, then it's a short step to saying, oh, and then this person's a member of that group. So now I could use violence against them. And obviously violence comes in degrees. This is the worst of the worst, shooting up people in a place of worship. But every incremental step that we as a society allow to get closer to that is bad. So, this person believed as firmly, all of the people that are out there saying, yes, it's okay to punch Nazis and a MAGA hat is Nazi, or etc., and believe that's okay. This person that just shot up that mosque, he felt just as strongly. It's okay to use violence against people of the Islamic faith because it's such a danger to us. And therefore, these people, even if they've not committed any sins, even if they've not done anything to me, I'm going to go after them. It's the same type of mentality. Again, it's taken to the absolute most disgusting extreme possible, but... So, I am going to have to go here shortly because my phone's running out of power, and I don't know. It's a frustrating day. I have to start thinking about work because I'm almost there, and I can't go on about this. But thank you all for listening. I guess, again, I just want to say my thoughts and prayers are with everyone that was affected, and that, you know, we should be critical. We should look at the details. That's okay. Don't celebritize this person. He deserves the maximum possible punishment. And I guess we should just all do in our personal lives what we could do to lower extremism just a little in our lives. So, you know, just remember, even on this particular issue, if there's someone that you disagree with, don't, what am I wrong about? It's okay, you can tell me. I have trouble looking. Why did he shoot them up? I think he shot them up because they were Muslims. That's what I think. But anyways, I won't be able to stay on that long. It'll be too much dead space waiting for you to type back. But feel free. Yeah, that's part of what I said. If part of it was because they're Muslims, and I believe he probably believed that, but the other part of it was the reason that he's doing all this trolling and stuff like that, Spyro the Dragon shot him violence and stuff, is because he wants people. It's kind of like the Marilyn Manson helter-skelter thing. He wants extremists on both sides. He wants you to pick a side. Oh, yes, those evil Muslims, or, oh, yes, the evil, you know, people that are critical of Islam. Let's all arm ourselves and have a conflict. That is part of it. Again, like I said, I'm going to have to be going. The last thing I'll say is, just remember, you know, like I was saying, all of us, before we want change of other people, should look at ourselves. We should try to engage in more civility. Does that mean you can't joke with people, call them insults here and there in a tongue-in-cheek manner? No, I'm not saying that. Does that mean you can't impassionately disagree with people and say that you think they're wrong? No, I'm not saying that. But just, you know, when you start to think, oh, this person that disagrees with me is evil. You know, I'm a Republican and they're Democrat. The Democrats are evil. They hate our country. Or vice versa. Or I'm a Christian and they're Muslim and they're evil, or vice versa. Or any of that kind of tribalism. Just remember, just take a step back and say, it's okay to disagree. We can still be friends. We can still have some form of civility. So, thank you all for listening. I might do I think I'm going to do a live stream tomorrow. That'll be a little bit of this, but on some other issues. And that will probably be at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning from 10 till noon. So thank you all again. I really appreciate it, and have a good one.